Okay, call this meeting to order at 7:35 PM. 6:35 PM, sorry. 7:35 somewhere.
You're waiting for that spring ahead thing there?
Yes, we begin with public input. If there's anybody here from the public, seeing or hearing none, we move on to student report. And we have Cassandra Fitz here, class of 2024.
Okay. For notable academic matters, North Reading High School placed third in academic decathlon regionals last week. Course selection process has started for classes next year. I believe it's currently the juniors' turn to pick their classes. And second quarter report cards and midterm grades are out. For fine arts, Notorious won the ICHSA quarterfinals in Wakefield yesterday, as well as superlative awards for Best Choreography, Best Arrangement, Best Percussion, and Best Soloist. For athletics, the girls and boys track team had CALs last week. The girls finished in first place for the third consecutive year, and the boys team finished in third place. Registration is open for spring sports and is due on March 8th, and the season starts on the 18th. Meetings in the cafeteria this Thursday for anyone who's interested in joining tennis for both the boys and the girls. And there's a meeting in room 205 on Thursday for anyone who's interested in joining boys track. This week is Random Acts of Kindness Week, run by the Student Council. All teachers have been given kindness bucks, which they can give to students who do kind acts or are all-around good students, and the students can exchange them for prizes. And they're also currently running a Crush Soda fundraiser where they're selling Crush Sodas for Valentine's Day. And for my student work report, I was going to talk a little bit about what I'm doing in AP Gov right now. So we're currently starting up Unit 4, which is on American political ideologies and beliefs. So we're doing personal political profiles where we analyze our own backgrounds and the factors that have contributed to our political beliefs. And then we compare our political opinions to that of different parties to determine what group we fall under. And then we write about what party we're currently registered with or plan to register with, our level of confidence in different government institutions, and political tolerance and how it differs from the normal definition of tolerance. And then we're also making political cartoons depicting ourselves and our opinions. And we're all just doing this to get a better understanding of how the party system works in the US and how ideology works, because one thing we talk about a lot is how the government is a contract between people where we give away some rights in order to feel safe and have certain rights. So we're talking about putting trust into the government and different levels of trust in the government and our own ideologies, what we think that the government should give in to us in return.
Very good. Questions, comments? I got a few. So on the government project, are you guys going to share with each other, or do you just turn it in?
So we usually turn it into the teacher, and then part of the project is making political cartoons of ourselves, so he usually puts them up and gives us time to look at all of them and discuss with each other.
Okay. And then with the schedule, since I just don't know this, does it always, do juniors pick before sophomores and sophomores before freshmen?
Yeah, it's usually the current juniors, then current sophomores, current freshmen, and then the 8th graders get to pick their classes for next year. I'm not sure when each grade goes. I just know it's usually in that order.
It's not like all at once. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was able to make it to Notorious. They were great. And so she won 4 awards in 4 categories. So it was pretty impressive. So, and there was a good support from North Reading there. A lot of people there. So, excellent. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sandra?
Thank you.
Congratulations on your school.
Thank you.
Okay. Continued business, we have none. Let's move on. Let's start with the SEAM Collaborative Budget. Dr. Daly, you want to hit the high levels of this?
Sure, thanks. So just as a part of our commitment to being on the SEAM board, I know I just shared sort of their audit from the other year. This is another piece that we like to share, which is the budget for next year. Let me see which one. Here we go. So I'm just sharing the budget highlights. I think we always talk a little bit about how many students are coming from us, and I think this is a great slide to show the member cost avoidance. So for North Reading, 5 students, 1 one-to-one aide. Our expenses are $306,180, and if we were in a comparable programs, closer to $45,825. So our cost avoidance is $179, $645. for that.
Does that include the transportation? That's just the cost for the school?
That is just the tuition cost
Okay.
of the school, yes. That's a good question, though.
So, and we often, you know, I always like to say that we do a lot more with this group than just this. Even when you talk about transportation, we're creatively thinking about ways to work collaboratively on transportation, multi-district. We have multi-district shared positions. We have multi-district job-like networks. There's just a lot to be gained by working together with some of our local districts here in cost avoidance in a larger scale. So certainly special ed costs, but really we've extended that. The collaboratives have grown over the years to be all-encompassing, really, of the needs of schools. And so it's a great partnership.
And the transportation model alone is adding to the cost avoidance, because the shared model with the other member districts definitely helps. We've done some analysis on it. And if we were on our own, kind of contracting on our own, the cost would be much greater.
Do we use our vans for a lot of that? Do we, for any of these, the transportation for the SEAM or not?
No, it's all with actually NRT. It's contracted through SEAM.
Okay.
And then, again, because it's pulling from this large pool of member districts, we share the cost, which is helpful.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on. If you're listening, a very exciting night. We talk a lot about policies here. So, who's the policy subcommittee? Noel and Jeff?
Yep.
Okay, well, why don't we, just for kind of how to operate here, why don't we, my thought would be, because I have some comments and questions, and changes, of course, because it's me. Maybe we introduce each policy, have a quick discussion about it, then we have a motion and a second for each policy one by one. So, do you want to introduce the point of these, or do you want to just get comments on them right away? I don't know that we
I mean,
need.
I'll just announce what they are,
Okay.
what they are as we're going along.
Okay, so I'm going to do BHE first.
Yeah, so the first one is the use of electronic messaging by school members, by school committee members. And, I mean, you can read it. It deals with the open meeting law. And, yeah.
And all these policies are new policies that we're looking at that have been recommended as policies by Massachusetts Association of School Committees.
Yes.
Correct.
Correct.
So my thought on this one is, I don't think we should pass this, period. That's my initial thought. If we pass it, I definitely think we should eliminate paragraphs 2 and 4. My big concern here is, generally speaking, I think our policies should be what we should be doing, not, basically this is saying we should follow the law. And then paragraphs 2 and 4 say this is what the law says. And the problem is how it gets interpreted will be, there'll be advisory opinions, there'll be cases that happen over the next few years. And by passing a policy that specifically says this is what the open meeting law says, that interpretation can change over time.
Right.
We're not even referring to it, we're just saying this is what the open meeting law says. So I have concerns about passing it at all. I don't know that there's a value of saying we're going to follow the law as a
Well,
goal of ours.
yeah,
Some of the other ones say like, we want the superintendent to put in place a policy. That's different than us saying, I want us to follow the law. So that's my thoughts.
As a general rule, I mean, I think, don't make a policy unless you need it, and I'm not sure why we need this,
I
since the
agree.
law is pretty explicit, but
So to clarify, is the law explicit upon electronic messaging? I don't think it is. I think that the reason why this exists is because of, as Scott referenced, cases that have come up where there's been issues around text messaging and there's not clarity. So to try to be proactive, to put it into the policy, just to remind everyone. But I think we all know this, so if we just
Well,
agree to
but-
do it.
Yeah.
my comment, my experience, more than my comment on this, is that's true of most laws.
Correct.
That they're never gonna be fully encompassed, and people never go back and rewrite and rewrite. They just get interpreted over time. And this is just a form of interpretation based on the case law that exists. So, I mean, to me, it's sort of redundant to what we know and what's out there. That's That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, I think it's,
Was
go ahead.
this based on, I may be confusing this with one or the other, but was there an incident that occurred that, okay,
Yeah.
that,
So this is kind of
Any.
proactive,
Yeah.
let's say, reactive to something specific that did happen.
so having something clear
Yeah,
stated, so,
To be clear, something that happened
not in this
elsewhere.
district.
not here, yeah.
Correct.
Right.
So again, I think it's something, I would argue it's something that's really important for everyone to know and for everyone to follow. Whether we need a policy on it is a good point, you know, but I think it's good for us to discuss it here
Yes.
and to have it out, and just, if we have any new members in the future, make sure they know as well. But I do understand the overall point, which then might apply to a lot of our decision-making going forward, which is great.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So Scott, remind me, what you wanted to keep and
I-
strike?
Personally, I don't think we should pass this at all.
Nothing, okay.
I don't think we need it, but I think paragraphs 2 and 4, where it says under the open meeting law, under the public records law, what that's doing is very shortly summarizing much more complicated laws and cases that come from that, and to take the laws and say, this is what that law says in one small paragraph, I think is not an appropriate way to do it. I don't think you should say, like, for example, deliberation is blah, 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 is defined as movement toward, there's gonna be decisions of cases that talk about what is and is not a deliberation. And so my concern is by saying, this is what it is, you actually might be passing something that might not be the interpretation after the next case. So, and if you remove those, then all it's basically saying is, as elected officials, we have to follow the law, which I think is pretty clear. So I don't think there's a need for this, and I understand this was MASC has suggested it, but there are other policies that we've decided not to implement because of MASC, so that's my concern with it. I think it's poorly written from what it is, and I just don't think we need it, so I personally won't vote to approve it, just because I think we're just putting more things in that future people have to then continue to update, and yeah, I don't see a reason for it, but again, I'm 1 of 5, so.
I mean, I don't see the harm in having, say, paragraphs 1 and 3 that are just sort of a statement of, this is, because policy is so we know how to conduct ourselves, right? So if you are showing this to someone who, say, is a new school committee member, this is something that is, I think it's important, to have as a statement, like and also to assure the people who elected us that.
That's fine.
What?
That's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah,
So,
again.
like,
So
do you know what I'm saying?
If, for example, the state were to repeal the entire law,
Mm-hmm.
we might still want to have those 2 paragraphs in as, this is our rule.
Right. Yeah, and also, I just think it would give reassurance to the public, I think. That's how I read it, but I'm not an attorney.
Yeah, and again, I mean, even at the end of the first paragraph, talking about email and text messages, social media and internet web forums and internet chat rooms, again, I think they're trying to summarize what's in the laws, but I don't know if that's a comprehensive summary of that or not, and so that's why, again, I have concerns with it, and so we can vote it in as it is, we can remove those 2 paragraphs, we can not pass it, but, so I will entertain a motion if anybody would like to make a motion to pass this or amend it or do whatever they,
As a first reading.
as a first reading, correct. All these are going to be motions to approve for a first reading.
And you need to put new in front of it, because this isn't a revision.
So new policy
New
BHE?
policy.
Okay.
It's revision.
Would anybody like to make a motion?
So why don't the subcommittee make the motions if they
So-
are
Yeah.
still putting.
If you
forward.
want it, so,
Yeah.
Well,
again.
I don't really want it, but,
I'm gonna vote nay on it, personally. I just don't think we
Well, you
need
can
it.
move pass over that too. I mean, we have to take
Move-
action on each of these, but.
move to pass the new policy of use of electronic messages by school committee members.
Move to pass.
So,
it.
new to pass, and I would
First
say,
reading.
new to pass which is
For
policy
first reading.
BHE.
Yeah.
Just have BHE in there. So we have a motion,
I have a second.
and we have a second. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Okay, does not pass 4-1.
All
Okay.
right.
Was the motion to pass over it, or to?
No,
No, it was a
motion to approve. It was a motion to pass.
Motion
Yeah, I was
to, motion to
confused. That's
pass.
why I was waiting.
Oh.
Oh, wait, okay, go back. Is
Motion
it-
to approve.
Motion to approve. We have
That's
a
a first
motion.
reading.
Oh, okay.
Motion to approve.
Yeah, let's do the motion. A motion to approve as a first reading,
Yes.
new policy BHE.
Correct.
Okay, and we
And
have a second.
I second that.
So, all those in favor?
Was it aye?
Any other ayes?
Nope.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay. It fails 4-1.
Rare
Feels good to be
failed
safe.
Okay.
So that means we
Okay.
just don't do a second
We
reading.
don't do a second reading because we didn't approve the first reading. Okay. Next one, E EHAA.
It's the district security relating, it's a new policy relating to district security relating to technology. Again, I'm not going to read it for everyone. Everyone's reading skills are up to date.
Anybody have any comments on this one?
I'm just refreshing my memory here. It's been a few weeks.
I have no comments on this one.
No, I'm fine with
Um,
this.
Okay, so you want to do a motion to approve first
Motion,
reading?
motion to approve first reading of policy EHAA, district security relating to technology.
And Cindy wants to say new policy, EHAA. Did you say new?
I thought so.
I thought I did.
No, I didn't think you, whatever.
Second.
You did, okay. We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
I gave you the hard job, Jeff.
Okay. Next one, EHB.
So this one deals with data and records retention.
Right up your alley.
It's true. I don't, the thing I don't understand about this is, what, has anything changed about public records law? Like,
I don't know.
this seems to be codifying, again, what's already in
Yeah.
existence.
Is this just adding in additional layers because of electronic?
No, I mean, that covers it. The current public.
Do we
record
have
laws.
anything that points who the custodian of the public records is?
Yes.
We do already? There's already,
Oh, in a policy?
yeah, is there a policy? That was what I thought this was trying to do,
Yeah.
was specify who it is. My only comment on this was that it should be the position, not the person, that should be named. I think it should be the
Agreed.
assistant district, whatever the position is.
Correct.
I think that's who it should be, not Michael Connolly. But
Agreed.
other than that, I mean, I was assuming this was just kind of trying to codify who the person is that is in
Home
charge of
address.
that.
Yeah.
So I was fine with it.
Um,
I mean, it might be a different title in the future.
Michael, did you even
That's
know
a
that was
state
you?
law, we all have to have that, or Desi, it's a state law, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know that we had a policy on it.
So I would be
Is
okay
there
with this
both-
personally if, again, I don't know that we need any of these policies, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But like, to the extent that we are going to try to do it,
Well,
but I would change it to the title.
Can I ask a
Yeah, of
general
course.
question?
Yeah.
How did these, are these like recommended by
Yeah.
the policy committee? Like everyone came to consensus and said, we should bring these because we agree with them? Because it,
Motion to bring, well, these are recommended by the state, and so,
By the, I
right, do
mean,
we just push
Right.
everything MASC is recommending for our consideration, or is the committee recommending these?
just pushing them forward for a first reading
Yeah,
to see.
first reading.
Everything?
Yeah, yeah.
So we can say no to MASC if we want to.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll just say that we don't bring forward everything that's in there. This particular, but they're all related, these
Yeah.
particular ones. And so we brought forward a good amount of what's in this group.
Okay,
But we would screen some out.
okay,
Um,
got it.
And there's definitely, as was mentioned earlier, there's definitely some that we felt just don't fit our district. But we felt that these all were worthy
Yeah.
of discussion and deliberation here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I would be fine not having this one either. I agree, it's just restating what the law is, but I mean, again, to me, it was just, the main thing was establishing the custodian of public records for the district, who that person was.
Yeah,
And so that's why I thought we were pushing it forward.
I can move to amend.
So you can do a motion to approve for first reading as amended.
Yeah, as
And again, so the amendment should just be the position that we'd put in there.
Yeah, and we'll also double check against any, I mean, we don't have a policy EHB. Let's just make sure that there's not another one that achieves just that purpose, so we're not being redundant, right? So we'll double check that too.
So do we want to do this now, or do we want to?
We'll do the first
Do you
reading.
want to do a
and
first
then we
reading
can-
now?
we
Okay.
We can not do a second reading.
Okay.
This,
Yeah,
am
go
I
on.
reading it wrong that the third paragraph says under public records law? This electronic, does that say that?
You're right. I mean, again, that's.
Isn't that the
That was the
same-
same concern I had before. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so isn't it the same exact
Yeah.
reason?
So do you want to just take that paragraph out again then? And so, yes.
Is that paragraph applicable to this?
Well, it talks about giving school-issued email addresses.
It's an interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we agree with, or
It's the
disagree
same-
with it on one and not disagree with it on the second.
My biggest concern on the first one was that we were directing ourselves on this. Like, as a school committee, I think we can say, we want the district to create this or whatever. And so we are then saying we want people that we supervise to put something in place. I don't like the idea of us saying we should do this, this is how the law says we should do things, but I agree with you. I mean, like, the concern is summarizing public law. Like I said, my initial reaction when I was reading all these was like, why are we passing any of these? I don't know that we need them if they're just interpreting the law. But this one, I just thought it was trying to put the custodian of public records in the policy. So I'm fine to just remove the third paragraph of that as well, because again, it's just interpreting what the law is.
Yeah. It's a clarification and transparency about the practice, though, of giving the emails, but again, it's one of those things that we do it anyway, so.
So what do we want to do?
I would
with this?
say a motion to approve as amended, file EHB data and records retention as amended by removing Michael Connolly and putting in the position, and the flat removal of paragraph 3 of this policy. Whew.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I guess I'll do aye. Opposed?
Nay.
So 4-1.
Okay.
May change my opinion on the second vote, who knows?
Jeff, you don't have to say what the amendments are.
Except that we hadn't clarified.
But we hadn't
beforehand,
clarified if
so-
we were doing the third,
Oh,
removing that
okay.
third one.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask what the amendment was otherwise, so I think we needed to clarify that
Okay.
one. And again, I think the key question is, do we name the custodian of public records and anything else? If we do already, then I don't know that we need this policy either, so.
Yep, we'll take a look.
Okay,
Next one is GBEE, personal use of technology.
Personnel.
Personnel use of technology.
technology, okay. Questions or thoughts on this one? I have a few. Well, number one, in the end of paragraph 2, it says X public schools. We have to probably put in North Reading, not
Yeah,
X.
thank you.
I mean, I had a number of concerns, like the third paragraph, let's see here. No, the one that says, paragraph says, any online activities that would not be considered appropriate in the classroom should not be conducted online. I think that's very, very vague. I mean, like, if you're a kindergarten teacher, what is appropriate in that classroom is very different than what, if you're a high school, if you're teaching an AP course in high school. And I just,
I think.
again, I
yeah.
think that was my concern reading this, was like, what exactly does that
I don't
mean?
think this means personal. I think this is when you're interacting with students from home. But it might not be clear.
But I don't think it's, I mean,
I think it's referring to like, whatever you're doing in a classroom, you should be doing.
but it says, I think this is going beyond that. It's saying any online activities,
I
like.
agree.
Yeah.
I think the intention of it is when interacting outside of the
Oh,
class.
there we are.
Yeah, my comment was like school business only, because.
Yeah, no, this isn't, the intent
I think
of this
this-
is not to, we have a social media policy that dictates how people should behave at home. That's been around for a while. This is different. This is about how you're using technology with students.
Within the school.
Yeah, that's how I read it. But I do understand what you're saying.
Because I think what I was reading this as is about how they use their school-issued accounts, but they could be using that beyond just the school usage, and
No,
so.
they shouldn't be, though.
They shouldn't be,
No,
but
they
but I
should
mean,
not be.
but then they're saying, but on online activities that would be considered appropriate in the classroom, and
Right.
Like,
So if you're
I have,
using-
yeah,
This has come up where teachers have used online, if you're using your school account and doing something inappropriate,
right.
they need to be very clear that they shouldn't be doing that.
I mean, again, at the top of this, I had just written overall concerns with this.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's,
I mean, I'm reading through
well.
this again, I think the first few paragraphs are pretty clear, and don't have a serious
Correct.
problem with them.
correct.
I agree that the any online activities paragraph is confusing.
I also was really confused by all contact and messages by coaches and faculty advisors with team members shall be sent to all team members, except for messages concerning medical or academic privacy matters. So if somebody sends them,
You should not be
A
one-on-one texting with a coach.
okay, but like but it says any but that's not even saying one-on-one, that's saying all should be sent to all. It's like if a student asks a question, you have to write back to everybody, not just to that student.
It's basically saying you shouldn't be having one-on-one electronic communication with people.
Yeah, I have concerns about the way it's written here,
Is
because
that
it seems
practical? I
like.
mean, is that,
That seems strange.
The defensive line coach can't,
I understand what they're trying to limit, but
They're
like
trying
if
to
somebody says,
avoid-
when is this practice? When is this practice, and then like, but you'd have to write to the whole team to say, just to clarify, the practice is at 3:30 PM today. And again, I just don't think it's clear enough, so my suggestion would be that policy subcommittee looks at this with some of the concerns here and some of the language and just tries to clarify this a little bit more about what it's trying to do. I agree, the first paragraphs I don't really have issues with, I think it's later on,
Yeah.
It's not reminded.
some of the pieces that I just think is kind of,
Yeah, again, I think the intention of it is that you shouldn't be one-on-one
Yeah.
texting, direct messaging kids. You should be
oh, agreed.
posting out, yes, practice is canceled.
Yep. Yeah,
You should not be one-on-one emailing with people.
yeah, but again, then the next sentence says that a little bit more. When interacting with students online, group interactions are encouraged and should include 2 staff members. One-to-one interactions should be avoided, but the paragraph before says you have to send everything to all team members, and so I think it's sort of conflicting a little bit.
So
Yeah.
this particularly
Diana?
calls out, oh,
Okay.
sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say, this particularly calls out, no, I'm just looking at this last paragraph, coaches and faculty advisors. Does this extend to teachers, or is that, because I'm just.
Yep, you're right, it doesn't say it, it just says.
I'm just like
coaches and-
thinking like, okay, so you have a student who emails a teacher for clarification on an assignment, or you have a student that emails a coach to say, I'm sorry I was late today, or, thank you for making me feel better, or what, and so that's not allowed, like, that seems.
The last sentence of that also contradicts by saying should, whereas the first sentence says shall. So at first it's saying you shall, this is my lawyer hat on.
Yes,
Uh,
I noticed that, I was highlighting it.
Yeah, where, in other words, you must communicate with multiple people, with the entire team. Then at the end, it's saying encouraged and should include 2 or more staff members. One-on-one interactions should be avoided. Should does not mean it has to be, whereas before it's saying it has to be,
MASC should really get some better lawyers. Sorry.
or maybe any.
I just wanted to ask, there's no other, like when you hand out devices, there's no other similar to like in a corporate world, employee policy besides like what we have that says like this is the appropriate use and you have to sign off on it. There's nothing.
We give them school committee policy. That's what they would be
Yeah, so
signing
in
off.
there, you said that there's a social media one, which we have, but nothing.
Yeah, and that's more for how they behave as employees.
Yeah,
It does speak a little bit to interactions with students, but we certainly have cases where, the team has a Twitter account and the team messages out. But what this is saying is you shouldn't be one-on-one. But the points you're raising are all valid. I mean, I can see how you could misinterpret this. I guess the better question is there a reason to have a policy that addresses this that we can point to for people when they're setting this up? Or if they've done something wrong, where we can say you violated a policy as opposed to just, whoops, I didn't know.
I mean, to be clear, I think a policy like this is needed. I just think it needs to be cleaner.
yeah, agreed.
I agree.
I very much agree with you that there has to be something in place
Yep.
that you can fall back on.
Again, that's the goal of the policy, to make sure that people understand what is and is not permissible. And then if they're not doing something appropriately, you have something to specifically say, this is the policy that you violated.
Maybe it's looking at our existing social media too and seeing if it is appropriate here or not. I mean, that was one that it was a while ago, but we really, because that one was going after personal use, and we had to really scale back from what was in there, because it was violating free speech, right? So,
So the other thing that's confusing about this, is this really just referring to social media type accounts, or does it include texting? Because to use Scott's example, if a student or athlete texts a coach with a question about a practice, is it our policy, should it be our policy that the coach, it's inappropriate for the coach
Absolutely.
to respond to that text to the student?
That-
That's fine.
shouldn't be happening in the first place.
Yeah, shouldn't have the phone number, first of all.
You should never be texting one-to-one,
Right.
either way,
Or
either
emailing
direction.
on
See, I think emailing on our school system is different, because that's completely transparent.
right,
Yeah.
and it's our system, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but again, that's not clarified in here. It says
So
all
that's-
contact
yeah.
and messages, not text messaging, so,
So we need to clarify.
okay.
It's much
we're gonna-
more fun to leave them raw and have a discussion about
Yeah,
it.
there we go.
Than because if we'd written this, then it would be more painful.
Correct. Well, and that's the thing, like, I think we shouldn't, sort of as Diana was saying, like, I don't think we have to just approve it because it's a recommended policy. I think if we have questions with it, we should question that, and I always ask a lot of questions on these ones, but I think it's important, because we do it one time, let's do it right the first time, rather than
Yep.
somebody else in the future coming back. So,
Yeah,
do I have a
these
consensus
usually-
to pass over this one then?
I think we can pass over it, and if the committee would, if this policy subcommittee wants to go back and
That's fine.
come up with something new, that'd be great.
Yeah,
The only thing I'll say, and I think we reached big, this is a big list, right? Because we haven't really done this yet. I would say that these are created usually proactively or in response to pending court cases with the lens of, it would have been great if the district had this policy. So I do just want to caution a little bit the whole, if it's in state law, because the way the case law plays out in the schools is whether the school had a policy or not that was violated, right? So it's not just the interpretation of the state law. There's a gray area there between, was there a policy that the coach should not have been texting that kid? No, the law doesn't really say anything on that, right? So that's where it gets a little tricky, and that's where I think their goal is to try and suggest these are things you should really consider, because there are these cases that have played out. Had the school had a policy like this, they would have been in a better position. So, I mean,
correct.
just keep that framework. in
But with that being said, the two things we were questioning was the open meeting law.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really apply to teachers and educators, and the public records law, which also doesn't apply there. And so I
Yes, it
think
does.
public records law would it be for teachers individually?
Absolutely, yeah.
Um,
All their emails, all their Google Docs, all their.
Yeah, but like, and that's the thing, like, I mean, I think distinguishing like everyday, teacher, what teachers are doing versus,
But they also have very little, in that instance, they have almost no control over what's kept or not electronically, because
right,
the system's doing it.
Right.
It's archiving it anyway.
yeah, so,
Anyway,
Just wanted to add that piece.
yeah, no, it's a fair distinction.
yeah. Okay, pass over GBEE. I don't think we need a motion on this one.
Technically, the agenda doesn't say anything about voting anyway, so.
Okay. My next one, IJND, I have at the top stupid pointless. Sorry.
What?
My only notes at the top are stupid dash pointless.
So what do you really think?
Okay, go ahead, tell us. I'm sorry. Okay,
Appreciate the honesty.
what was that?
Said appreciate the honesty.
I mean, I don't know, I'm trying to look through again what this one was. You wanna tell us what it's about, Jeff, or for the record?
I felt that way about a couple of these. so.
It's basically, students should have the access
And community members.
and community members to information. Like, basically, it's if you're saving something, if you're saving records, are you saving it in a way that people can actually view, use, see see what you're saving. Imagine a world if none of you had a PDF viewer and things were saved in PDF.
Yeah, I had no idea what this was about.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
should have.
I get what
yeah.
Jeff's saying.
Yeah, no, and that makes
Yeah.
sense when you say it like that, but I didn't understand what access to various information formats,
Yeah.
or it should actually be information in different formats, or in what type of information do they have to have information to, and then it says.
My only issue, I mean,
and
my
then
issue with
utilize
this
the
is
privilege in
that,
an appropriate manner.
is that there will be some formats. I mean, I'm sure there are CAD classes around. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure most people here, exception of Noel, won't have access to viewers that can deal with those kinds of files. And I don't have a problem with that. Yes, it's just, to me, this is sort of a common sense thing. I think it goes a little too far, but I don't have a massive problem with it because A, I don't think it's gonna come up, and B, you know,
I literally just didn't know what it was talking about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think
Again, it would be-
information
it
in
would-
different formats.
It would be interesting to know the case or situation that came up at some point somewhere around the state or country that caused MASC to determine that we should have a policy like this. It definitely could be more, in what I think in plain language is the saying was, we shouldn't be trying to provide information or documents to
It's not
students
transparency.
in a format that they have no way of
Right.
access.
Yeah, so I think the most important word there is access, right?
Right.
Like some reason or reasonable
And I think that's a
access.
good rule to have, a good
Right,
policy to
but
have.
it's written-
I'm not
Agreed.
sure that this actually says that. I mean, it does, but
I think it's, again, it's in compliance with the Children's Online Protection Act. It's one that we've obviously not adopted from the past. This is a redraft of MASC, so we could definitely pass over because we didn't adopt it in the past. So.
Yeah, I'm fine passing it over. I mean, it just seems to be a solution without, I mean, at least it's certainly in our district, a solution without really a problem.
I mean, again, if anything, it's the second paragraph that's fine. We are saying the superintendent, in conjunction with the director of digital learning, shall develop and implement appropriate procedures to provide guidance for access to digital resources.
I'm just surprised that is that not said anywhere else? Like, that we have to say it again
Yeah,
here?
but again, like, if
Maybe
we're gonna say
it's-
anything, that's what I think is fine. I think the
Yeah.
first part is just too, like, I just don't understand what they're saying.
I mean, that second paragraph is basically saying, the library's open, come in.
Yeah. Okay, well, I said, yeah, so we're gonna, do you wanna pass over this
Yeah.
one then, and you guys can look at it again?
Yep.
Which you'll love when you come and we give you more work.
Oh, good.
Okay, use of technology in instruction.
we get you working for MASC.
Um, Anybody have comments on this one?
Which one am I on now?
It just seems-
IJNDB, use of technology in instruction. I have no particular concern with this one, but
Sort of stating just the obvious, but it's
Yeah.
good to have it stated.
Well, policies aren't bad because they state the obvious. They're actually good when they state the obvious.
Yes,
because what may
that's
be
true.
obvious to
Yeah.
us may not be obvious to everybody, so.
This next group, they're all kind of related, and they are ones that we didn't accept in for whatever reason, we never had a similar one in the past. We have our acceptable use policy, and that's, we're always just saying we haven't so we're not specifically talking about how we're using technology, we just have a policy about it. This is saying we want to have technology in instruction, we think it's valuable, and in order to do that, follow the other policy. So I think for this and then the others, and then there is one about the community that's a little nuanced. But I would agree that the next couple kind of feel like they're stating the obvious.
Are we okay passing over IJNDC?
right, or I think we're on one before, the IJNDB right now
Or
we're on.
IJDB, sorry.
It's naming
Um,
convention.
I mean, should we Should we maybe combine them into one policy? If there's something that needs to be said and just,
Well,
or,
to me, the use
We
of
could do-
technology in instruction
Yeah.
is somewhat, I'm not just sure redundant, but overlaps, I mean, to your point, Patrick, with the acceptable use. I mean, I think absolutely we need an acceptable use policy. I have no problem with that. That's common throughout the world. But
and do we have one or not?
We do.
We
We
do
do.
already?
Would
So
it make sense,
passing another one would,
would it makes, is there anything in these set of policies that really is missing from that policy that is
So,
important to us?
so again, the acceptable use policy actually says what is, it's more for the student.
Right.
It's under the student section. This
this is
is,
for the faculty.
this is more, well, and it's also more in general, like, here's what we believe about these are more loftier, right? They're like, here's what we believe about digital resources, and everything that happens follows that policy, right? So, I think if you were to say, in general, that we don't need to have these more visionary statements about how we're using technology, the quote-unquote stating the obvious, then we can just pass over this as a group.
Baffling to me.
So
And
I
again,
personally-
we haven't adopted these in the past, I'm sorry.
So
Yeah.
I personally prefer to adopt policies as a school committee that actually reflect what we think, or that address
Novel.
issues that we are legally required to address. So I mean, there may be some elements in here that are worth looking at, but it doesn't feel like these policies as they're written are really very useful.
These are more directing me and Dr. Downs to do our jobs. Then the other policies are
Although we need
actually
this.
what we're telling kids to do.
This is also, you're saying this was the missing piece of the whole puzzle. We just get you guys to do your jobs.
So,
Yeah.
again, I think there's sort of a cluster here. The one that's a little different, I think, is, well, we could take it one at a time. but-
okay, so, yeah, I think when we pass over, that doesn't mean we won't pass something if there's something that we believe, but I just think we have to look at all the other policies and make sure that they align well and have a stated
Agreed.
purpose in general. So are we in agreement on passing over IJNDB? Yes?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And then acceptable use of digital resources. Do you want to look at the one that's already in place before we vote on this one?
Yeah, I would say that about, about that one and the next one,
Student use of technology in
JICJ.
schools?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm assuming,
So Dr. Deela, you're saying like this doesn't exist somewhere else, right? Because it's specifically referencing you and Dr. Downs,
Yeah.
right?
It's talking more about students rather than,
Yeah, our other policies
Yeah.
that are in
Right.
existence.
The
But yeah,
policy
next-
exists, but we don't have a policy saying the superintendent will do this, the director of digital learning
Okay.
will do that. Things are kind of working, we're doing these things.
Right.
Maybe it's not needed.
yeah. And that's the thing, like I said, I was more concerned about restating the law. I don't really mind saying, this is, we're telling you to create guidelines and things like that, but I'm just worried about if it conflicts with anything else we already have, and so. Yeah, I mean, again, I had no particular concern with this policy, but if they're all lumped together, maybe we should pass over and let the policy subcommittee come back with more specific recommendations on those.
that's fine.
So do we want to pass this one over as well?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm looking forward to that meeting.
Oh, fine. Okay, student use of technology. Jeff, you thought this should be wrapped into those other ones that are passed
Yeah.
over?
Yep.
Any objections to that? Okay. District website and social media. Is this one that's a little bit different
Can I have the letters,
Yeah.
please,
for the last one?
when we did the.
No,
I'll do the three that we just passed over. One was.
So the one that we're passing over, student use of technology in schools, we have this already, so was this adding to it, or? I guess that's, my question, like, are we gonna be adding this language? Cause this exists somewhere, right, or does it not?
It's similar to the others. It exists as what students should be doing.
Okay,
But there's no policy saying
Doesn't
we should be
exist
doing
as a, yeah.
so.
So the school committee
Okay.
say we believe in this ideal.
Okay.
So we
I
passed
understand.
over IJNDB before, then IJNDC, then JICJ.
Correct. Now we're on community use,
Now we're on,
DC.
community use.
yes, JICJ, JICJ, right?
Isn't that, well,
That's a
whatever.
J. JICJ.
Oh, yeah.
Now we're on to KDCB.
Yeah. I don't think we have anything like this. I don't even know, this is what I thought we'd discuss, because I didn't know what you would want us to do.
My concern on this was the second paragraph about, I said, is this even true? Because this would be saying, like, if Notorious has a Facebook page, that you can't comment on that. And my only concern would be, I don't want to pass something that we're violating already. I would almost want to make sure that we are in compliance with this before we officially pass it, and make sure that there's no specific reason, like, because if I'm not wrong, I mean, like,
I don't
a
think
Facebook from
this-
North Reading,
This does not have anything to do with.
I'm wondering.
With platforms. This, with third-party platforms. This has to do with computer equipment.
Just the site?
Software, but I don't think Facebook is software.
No.
Information access. So this is someone coming into the building and using our systems.
Right.
okay, and so,
So
so
if
last
this-
sentence,
if
every
they used
school and
our
district
public
site.
library, if someone came into the public library to use our library,
Yep,
they would follow our school rules, is what it's saying.
but the last paragraph, the last sentence, every school and district site.
The one
So
before.
district site, so that you're, so like, a Facebook site that's
I
put
think
up
you're on
by
a
a,
different
You're
policy.
on a different
You're
one.
one ahead.
oh, district website, that's why.
Yeah, you're like,
Well, that's probably why then. No, I had student use of technology, what
no,
was that for that?
community
No,
use of
community-
digital resources.
ADC, we're talking about.
Looks like you didn't print that one out, so never mind,
Oh,
okay,
here,
there we
that's
go.
why I'm here.
Okay.
You like it. You must love it.
There we go. I
Good,
printed
no
all of them
issues.
out, because
No issues.
I started, community use of digital resources. Okay, I didn't see this one, so never mind. So we're not on KDCB, by the way.
This KDC.
Yes.
KDC,
KDC.
yes, okay.
We don't have this happen very often in this community, where people come in and use our technology.
Yeah.
Like, if they did, this is, I would say.
Okay.
You know, if parents came in and we handed everyone a Chromebook for a presentation, they would need to follow the school rules,
Okay.
is what it's
Yeah.
saying.
So I have no issue with this one. Does anybody have, do we want to pass this one?
Yes.
Okay. Want to have a motion?
Motion to approve the new policy KDC, community use of digital resources.
For our first reading?
First reading.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor? Aye, opposed? Unanimous, 5-0. Okay. Now we're on to district website and social media.
Okay, now,
That was the confusion, Rich. I was just reading the wrong one. And again, my concern here was just like on social media sites and things like that, it says that all comments need to be turned off on all of these. And I don't know if that's the case that we're doing right now, and I don't know if that's what we,
if, so these are sites that are official school accounts, or are they ones that are like, could they be the football team, the
I
volleyball
don't
team,
know
kind of
exactly.
thing?
That's what I'm.
Yeah, I think that, I have a big question about that, just in general, the various sites out there that are the football team and the soccer team and the volleyball team, what is their status?
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's what we talked about a little bit there, trying to manage that, trying to have some uniformity with what that is. As a district, we don't have a Facebook page. If we did, we'd have no comments on there. I think with the X or, former Twitter, similar process. I don't know that every single team's process, because there's no like official way to do it, there's not really a guideline on that. And so this is more of a best practice. And that's why we kept it on here for discussion, because, do we want to have those kind of requirements around the back and forth? You do run into that issue of, what if someone says something or does something on there that's a hate crime, that's a this, that's a that. And so by having those things turned off, there's a lot less room for some of those issues.
I just wonder if it should My concern is that this goes all the way down to like base level, like football booster clubs and, you know, other groups potentially, like,
Well, wouldn't it
But Facebook-
just be those maintained and managed by the school?
I would say that wouldn't apply to those groups because they're not school.
okay, but like notorious, like it says district personnel, if it was like district
Notorious would-
administration, if it was like district administration and school committee, like that level I think is fine. I just wonder about like individual clubs and activities and
And that's the,
Groups
that's
like
the
that.
major issue, right?
Right.
I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
but I guess it doesn't feel like we know what those accounts really are,
yeah.
because they're
Well,
not
that's-
official. But,
That to me is an important part of it.
right, but it's not okay that that we
Agreed.
don't know,
No, agreed.
right? It's
No,
like.
I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah, we could get, to say it another way, we could get in trouble if, in one of the scenarios you mentioned, and it happened on the volleyball team's Twitter, X
Right.
account. It doesn't matter that a coach 5 years ago started that account, or a player started, or however it got started, it's gonna come back on us.
Yeah, I don't care that it goes to a granular level. I do care that we don't even know.
Well,
That's-
that's my thing. My concern is like passing a policy right now at the granular level when we don't know who owns it, we don't know.
That's fine. That's
What's
fine.
happening right now on there. I don't love passing something that we might be violating already without knowing that information. And the bigger question is like, who owns this, who's in charge of these, and,
There's 100 of them that are dead too, that
Yeah.
are dormant.
And the
Yeah.
other piece is about the unauthorized use, like, to put out there that no one should be creating an account that appears to be coming
Right.
from our team or our school.
But that-
so I wonder if we need a broader statement on that part, about like, you know, all accounts must be registered with blah, 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 or something like that, so that then we can say it's
Well, more
an
specific.
official account or something, and then you have specific usage guidelines of those format, of those,
Yeah, and we've kind of unofficially done it. That's why I did think having a policy similar to this would be helpful for us to help regulate and say to those teams, there's a new school committee policy, we've got to make sure we're in alignment with it.
So when you say you've unofficially done it so far, what's been the policy that you've unofficially?
Well, because it's sort of the Wild West when it starts, right?
Yeah.
New social media platform comes out,
Right.
everyone's creating all these Twitter accounts, and, you know, so we would sort of, at our administrative level, talk to the principals. It's mostly high school, but also middle school, but teachers have them too, teachers have accounts, and just talk it, I mean, we're going back a few years now, but talking like, there's a whole thing with social media that it should be you, like, so your account should be Patrick Daly, not band class, right? But then there's a question of like, well, what's too personal, what's not, you know, so we did come up with some guidelines that we've passed on to teachers and to those creating accounts. I think it would be a lot of work, but I don't think it's a bad thing to maybe remind people, this is how it should be used, you should turn comment, you know, we could give some guidance to folks about what that looks like,
Are you-
just to maintain that, yeah.
It says that you would authorize these accounts, so
Yeah.
are you okay going and reviewing and authorizing for compliance?
Yeah, I mean, at the sake of as much work as it is, it's a lot more if you find out that all of a sudden someone's using their Twitter account to directly message their students. So there's been a couple of times where things have come up where we've had to say, well, that probably shouldn't have happened in the first place, right? So having a policy is helpful.
so I just think that this has some of the information, but you were saying there's already guidelines on how to get an authorized account and how it should be used.
Well, it's
I wonder if
not
that-
school committee guidelines, though. I mean, I'm
Correct,
just-
but I'm wondering if that needs to be incorporated into this policy,
Yep.
because it doesn't really talk about that piece of it, and that I think
Right.
is what's missing.
Well, what we could do
because-
is take back some of what we cut out of the earlier one, right, that talked about one-to-one use and communication, and so we could kind of, these are basically unchanged from MASC.
Right.
We can now go back and sort of bring in what the committee feels we should bring forward. So maybe it's taking this one and kind of building in some of those other pieces.
Okay, so that would be my recommendation, is that it gets modified and added. Again, I don't think the thought process is wrong here. I didn't write
Execution
stupid
is
on this
not.
one, I just wasn't exactly sure if this was even true right now, or that's how we're doing it,
Yep,
and
no,
so,
I think this is an area of
Okay.
definitely.
yeah. So we would like to see one, but just think we need to pass over this one at this time and get
Yeah.
something different. Is agreement on that? What was that?
to be rewarded.
Yes, so we'll pass over it for now. We'll pass over it for now. And that is KDCB.
Next one is
EFC, Universal Free School Meals. My only concern here is like, the Massachusetts budget right now, this is only year to year, correct?
correct.
And that's my big
That was
concern
my,
here.
that was
is-
my question on this too, of
Right.
like, let's assume the state stops the program.
Right.
Are we gonna be funding it?
Are we just funding, because it seems like we're putting in a mandate that we're gonna cover the expense if the state no longer is covering it, and I would not agree to that part.
Correct.
I mean, they've
mean-
kind of said that this is something they're gonna support long-term, which is probably why the MASC is coming out with
I mean,
something like this.
So I think you
the
could
second
adjust.
paragraph does,
Right? I mean,
It explicitly says,
we're participating in that program.
it's identifying the programs.
Right.
And
But
with guidance of these programs, the district will, so if the programs go away, the guidance goes away, and that removes the district's obligation to follow.
no, I,
I think there should just be one statement that says we agree to participate in this program, and as long as it is
As long as it's
funded,
funded.
Yeah, that
as
needs to
long
be
as it is
stated in there.
funded, we will,
Because it wouldn't be crazy to
Right.
think, I don't think they'll do it.
With budget cuts,
wouldn't-
it could go away.
That's right.
Right.
Well, and it could go away, and they could say, but you still have to provide free lunch.
right.
Right, yeah.
This is
And
Right.
I don't think
now
that'll happen, but
Warm, they have to,
states have done crazy
Correct.
things,
bill to take it away. I
unfunded,
think
you know,
that's,
in terms of underfunded mandates.
I'm on.
Yeah, so I just think it needs that one statement in there somewhere that is if the program's not funded by the state,
that's fine.
that,
We don't believe it anymore?
no, that we're not gonna pay our, I mean, again, what positions are we cutting to
In
to
accordance with
provide for that then?
guidelines for participation in these programs and contingent on the ongoing funding from
Right.
the state or federal government, the district will provide universal free meals to all students in the district.
Yes. Are we good with that? Do you wanna pass that as a,
Senator.
you wanna pass that as a first reading right there, as amended? I'm fine with it other than
So let me
that
say it
part.
That
again,
makes sense. to me.
Sounds good.
adding in
It's a little coverage.
after, so this is, Cindy, in the
Third paragraph.
paragraph that says in accordance with guidelines, after programs, comma, and we're adding and contingent on ongoing state or federal funding for these programs, comma, and then the rest of it, as is.
Did you do that through GPT?
It'd take me longer to figure out how to use ChatGPT than come up with that sentence. So that way it's within, we're not absolving our
Right,
agreement with the idea, it's just.
yeah, that was my only concern here, was just the funding piece if it goes away, so.
Okay. Move to approve the new policy upon first reading, EFC as amended, universal free school meals.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Good job. Okay, next one.
Last one,
What was that?
last one.
Last one. School nutrition program charge policy. Questions or thoughts here?
So I think just the one note here, I think they're just trying to align a meal charging policy that is now in line with universal free meals.
Right.
Because previously, 5 years ago, it was revised, there was guidance coming out where we were setting like caps and 3 meal charges and $15 limits before, and so now it's just, there's a universal free meals program. So it speaks towards those that are taking a second entree or à la carte, that's bread payments.
And we've had some conversations with, making sure that we're following the rule. Because when they follow the policy right now, the very least, we also have to change our policy. Or this would, I think,
I think this would replace
This would replace the existing
the
policy.
existing, yeah,
That basically sets numbers and limits. It doesn't really work in a free.
in a universal free,
So this is replacing another policy?
I believe, yeah.
So then, my overall suggestion is we should see that policy that it's replacing before we put a different one in place.
Yeah,
I
so it's
would-
on the
yeah.
it's actually on the website.
So I would recommend we pass over till we see that, but just on this one, just a couple of clarifications on the second paragraph. So again, I think we should have the same sort of language that Rich just put in about where it says the district provides free lunches to all students.
It's E's, but it's
You know, I would maybe refer to that other policy that we are going to be passing, that we just passed.
Yep.
And again, because it has to be contingent upon it being funded again.
In accordance with policy, yeah.
Right. At the end of that, yeah.
That came out after our policy subcommittee meeting,
Okay.
so.
At the end of that line, there's period. There's the word period, and a period within the parentheses, and a period outside the parentheses.
You have to replace it.
So I think we have too many periods there.
They're both going to old school and new school.
Okay.
I was gonna say, isn't that like a dispute?
Covering your bases.
Exactly.
Or à la carte items, I put a
think there's
comma, but,
Double spaces there too, but,
Yeah.
you know.
yeah. Or à la carte items, I put a comma, but under payments, the end of the first paragraph after payments, under payments, it says, if parents, guardians have issues with student purchases, they should contact for assistance.
Contact whom?
They
Yeah.
contact who?
It would be the food service.
Okay, we have to put in who they're contacting, that's just
Yeah.
missing.
So I think, but to your point, if we're gonna replace a policy, we should do that at the same time.
Right.
We should vote to do that.
Yeah, I
as
don't
well.
think, I mean, the current policy it's worded a little differently in terms of the naming, but it's speaking all towards the same thing.
Okay.
The charging of meals.
So then I would suggest we pass over this to look at the policy we want to replace, because we shouldn't have two policies that cover basically the same thing. And then we can come back and look at it later on, but and also identify who they're contacting for assistance.
That's fine.
Yes.
We in agreement to pass over this one for now? Okay. Write down, pass over. Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on. Bus contract options. Mr. Connell, you want to go through this with us?
Yes, I'll do that. So in your packet, there was a memorandum that was included. So we had actually spoken about this at the last meeting, or 2 meetings ago, about the status of the existing bus contract with North Suburban Transportation, and where that contract stands. So again, as a reminder, we are in the third kind of guaranteed year of North Suburban's contract. We have the option to renew for 2 one-year options that could extend out through the end of fiscal year 2026. So we certainly have had discussions, we've done some research and seen what other districts, certainly regionally in the area, that have gone out to bid either last year or this year, and some of the market pricing that is coming back for what we would most likely see should we go and issue a bid and not exercise the one-year option with the pricing that we received a little more than 3 years ago with North Suburban. And after going through that process, I think we're very confident that it would be advantageous for us to exercise that renew for an additional year, for a 4th year with North Suburban. Number one, they've done a pretty solid job from a service perspective. They've come back to the district after, I think, 6-year separation from their previous time in the district, and they've really delivered, I think, high-quality service through some really kind of challenging times that many districts faced with other providers, with the bus shortages and escalating fuel costs and a lot going on in the market. And they've done a very solid job for the district. And I think it's just from a financial perspective, from what we've seen, and there's a little chart of the most recent data that we collected, but we have data that involves a lot more districts, that we would really be seeing, despite the increase that we are going to be experiencing next year in that 4th year, with the current pricing with North Suburban, we would expect to receive even higher pricing. So we do think it's both from a financial perspective advantageous to extend that one-year option, And the fact that they have delivered sort of a high-quality service over the last 3 years.
And I'll just add, this was one of our school committee goals to look at this. Mrs. Boutwell and I met with Mr. Connolly and Dr. Daly specifically about this. We went through this, and at the end of that meeting, it was our recommendation that we accept the option. The only contrary would be like, well, maybe you see if you get anything better, but we also just determined that with negotiations going on with the teachers right now and with, you know, a possible override discussion at the end of the year, we thought Mr. Connolly was busy enough, and rather than putting a request for proposal together to just do that, to do the legwork, wasn't really worthwhile. So I don't want to speak for you, Diana, but by recommendation, I think both of our recommendations was to accept the option. Okay. So with that being said, if somebody wants to make the motion here, anybody have it open?
I move to approve that the district awards the school bus transportation contract to North Suburban for one more year from July 1st, 2024 to July 30th, 2025.
June 30th.
To what?
What was that?
I thought she said July 30th, 2025, but she may have said June.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much. School committee goals. We want to run through these goals. I mean, I have them in front of me. I can just kind of run
that's fine.
through them quickly, and we can just, and again, the goal is just to see if we've done this, if we're working on it, or if we haven't started it yet. So under leadership and governance, we had a goal that we will engage in one professional development presentation or session related to school committee responsibilities and authority. Rich and Noel.
I've not started it.
Yeah, Rich, we need to get on this.
Okay, we got to get on that. Next one, school committee will review the school committee policies and structures in place related to school safety and support the implementation of the roles of the school resource officer and community service sergeant. Diana and Jeff. Have we done
No.
anything on that? We've had some updates on some safety stuff, but I don't know
Yeah, that's,
if there's more to do.
that's an open discussion in terms of no and yes. The no is we haven't had that discussion, but there is discussion about school safety and the security systems in the schools that is still ongoing.
Okay.
So what we're gonna be doing.
And perhaps, I mean, one thing I would suggest, I mean, I've reached out on a couple of the ones that I had, I've reached out to Mr. Connolly and said like, hey, can we have a meeting on this or whatever? Perhaps just kind of connect. I mean, I think there's some changes that happened at the police department, like walking through schools, things like that. Maybe if you guys just have a meeting to just sort of see how it's going and then report back, and I think that's sort of what we need, so.
That's fair.
I'll just say this was a continuation from a previous goal that
Right.
It was.
Diana was very much involved in last year with the updated MOUs.
Yeah, I was
At
too.
the state level, all of that's carried forward, as you said, the processes. We've done some updates here, but yeah, I'm happy to meet with the two of you to talk about it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
just to see, because I think there were some changes that we had for this year, just making sure that that they're useful, that they, I don't know, see if we don't want it, if it goes too far, if it doesn't go far enough, or if it's just right, so. Financial and asset management, school committee will support the development of the plan to reduce kindergarten fees. I mean, bottom line, that is part of the budget stuff, and so I think that's ongoing, because it is on the goal for the budget for next year. So I would say that's partially met right now, because we're talking about it in there. Solar power,
No, I haven't done
you
anything.
haven't done anything on that one yet. I mean, again, I don't know if anything's changed, but just kicking the tires on that one.
I will say on that, our MOD is still very much knows that we're interested, and
Yes.
they're continuing to kind of stay in touch on what could be out there.
I mean, it could be worth just setting up a call just to sort of check in with them again then. So, I mean, if Jeff, if you want to
Yep, no, I can
kind of
get that.
spearhead that one. Rich and we're talking about ESSER positions to preserve positions. And again, I think just like the pre-K, that is in the budget for this year. And so I think we're beginning those discussions.
And I think everybody knows the stakes, I mean, but yeah.
Right. But, I mean, the point is, the first thing we can do is just make sure that they're on the budget that we're trying to advocate for, and they are in that.
Yep.
They were in that, so I think that's the first step, and that's all we can do there. Review the impact of current fee structure for extracurricular athletics. We should probably have another meeting on that. I think it's hand in hand with the budget stuff as well. But I still think we Rich and I met with Mr. Connolly and Dr. Daly last year, and one thing we had talked about was like, are these fair how we are? And so I think we should still maybe come back to that and have a discussion on that, because again, even if it's not eliminating fees, just seeing like, okay, is this fee right, and
Well,
make sure.
Yeah,
that
I think they're also, the second phase of that would be to analyze the universal cap,
The
and
cap
how,
and see-
what was the results of
Correct.
the
As
first
we
year.
approach the end
The
of the
pilot,
year.
the pilot year.
Yeah, so we could do that later on this year, so we should do that one. The next one's on the bus contract, and Diana and I did reach out to, Michael and Dr. Daly, and we had that meeting, so I think that one is.
And just a note on
complete.
that, so I know there was, during that meeting, there was some recommendations of us to kind of try to look, at maybe tearing a few bus routes and what that would look like to help
Yeah.
eliminate, the wait list, help maybe get runs a little bit shorter, a little bit more efficient. So I have engaged the bus ride team, and we provided data to them, they're working on some of that.
Yeah, well, okay, you can put it on me. I was one that pushed this, and I don't know if
Yeah.
it's possible or not, but like, as we all know, there's been wait lists, and like, we can't afford to add more buses to that.
Right.
And at the end of the day, there was no wait list last year when the buses were approved. The wait list happened later on. But my question was, some buses are idling for a little bit after the first run, before the second run, and I was just wondering, is there any way, like, and again, like, if one bus starts 5 minutes before the other, if they all start at the same time, is there any way that maybe one bus could do a drop-off at the elementary, go and do another route, drop off at high school, middle school, and then do a third one?
Sure.
Not all of them are gonna be able to do that, and maybe what that would mean is that 30 or 40 kids are arriving 15 minutes early, but we could talk about maybe having, a paraprofessional in the cafeteria for 20 minutes before school. And so we were just gonna look at that as an alternative to adding additional buses. Maybe that one extra route could, get a few fewer kids on each bus and eliminate some of that, so.
Right, and it might alleviate a little bit of, some overcrowding.
Yeah. But for the bus contract, we still were doing the same number of buses and everything. It would
Right.
just be if one or two buses possibly had the ability. And again, what that might mean was an earlier drop-off at the high school, middle school, but by a small amount, and then, just making sure somebody was in the building to watch them, so.
Yeah.
Through the chair. Just-
Yes, go ahead.
So it says that we would do a presentation. We were hoping that what we did last time and tonight sort of got there, but we can also do an update on these other questions later in the spring.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that was pretty much set. I mean, we've approved the budget on that one. Under educational program, school committee will participate in working group to implement the steps of NRPS 2025 related to equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging. Rich and Jeff, any updates on that one?
I
think
have
you
not
guys have
been
been
able
going,
to
no?
attend the meetings as I'd hoped this year. I don't know, Jeff, if you've been
No, I
able to
have
do
not.
any of that, so I guess we haven't started yet. The meetings that we know are ongoing, because
Yeah.
we see
Right.
updates from Mr. Clean, but
No, I haven't been able to attend.
You're welcome anytime. We have some presentations this week. We have
that's right, there is.
some ongoing work. There's going to be a community presentation also, so it'd be great to have
Yeah, it is.
the two of you, anyone else that wants to join.
Yep.
We're still setting a few dates, but
It is not a reflection on the quality or communication of those meetings, I assure you.
School committee will encourage the district-wide exploration of UDL and MTSS. Committee will request presentations from those engaged in this work through the district over the course of the school year. That's Noel and Diana. Have you done it? I mean, I think that, a lot of that is
That's sort of
the school
like
presentations.
starting with what we saw last, was that last meeting, with the high school?
you've been,
'Cause everything's blending
Yeah, totally.
together.
it was in January, yeah.
Um,
You'll start
but-
seeing that throughout everything.
yeah, and that's been really exciting to see, I
Yep.
think.
Yep.
for sure.
Ongoing. School committee will support the district in exploring opportunities for outdoor time for students. And the superintendent will give a presentation on this topic for the committee in the spring of 2024.
We should probably meet and just review
Yeah.
exactly what we're looking for.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great.
You guys can have that meeting. I mean, the only other piece that would be relevant on that one is if there's anything in the contract that would relate to that at all. And so I think it'd be worthwhile to have that conversation sooner rather than later, just because if it would have any impact on any any negotiation, so. Just
Okay.
to have that conversation while they're
Sure.
doing the other part.
We've gone past the ability to do new proposals, so we'd like to.
Okay, well, we'll adjust. School committee will support the
I
district.
think we're gonna require anyone to have to teach
I know.
one class
No, I
outside
know.
every month. But I think we.
I think they would welcome it.
I
for
think,
the most
I think a
part.
discussion with the, you know, the
Yeah, I
teachers
think-
obviously is part of it. so.
It's a great, I think everyone sort of buys in, but I think we could formalize.
Yeah, I mean, just making sure there's nothing that's, I don't know, whatever. Just having the discussion sooner rather than later, because you don't want to finalize a contract and then turn around and try to have something that conflicts in any way. School committee will support the district in exploring the topic of student mental health, including a focus on social media and device usage. Superintendent will prepare a presentation on the topic for the committee in the spring of 2024. So we've voted down all of the policies that you, about this, but
Well, it's so different though, right?
Yeah.
other than that, yeah, I mean, again, we've had some of those in there, but yeah. that's the-
And we have a grant for cell phone review. I will invite both of you to join if you can.
Okay.
To participate in the initial meetings with those as well. There's a good amount of teachers, about 20 or so, that have shown interest in participating in that study further. So.
Oh, that's
Okay.
great.
So, about to start, we'll say. And then, family and community relations, school committee work with CPAC. I've been doing that on not as much as last year. There's been a couple of webinars and some other things. I've attended some of it, but not as much as last year, to be honest. But there haven't been as many formal as last year, I think. I'm on some of the email chains, though, so I'm in the middle of that. And school committee will support the district's efforts to offer family university learning opportunities for families and community members throughout the school year. When's the idea on that one gonna?
First one is March 7th.
And you're
March
breaking
7th.
it up into smaller,
Yep. And so it's very similar, like, we're pulling the community-wide DEIB events, the community-wide anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, the cell phone with bullying and cyberbullying topics with Dr. Englander on March 7th. They're all going to be branded as family university events, as opposed to doing like one day that.
and are those in-person events, or is there an option to
Yep.
attend
Do you want to speak to the March 7th, Mr. Klee?
virtual? Okay. And is that a weekend? What's the 7th?
It's a Thursday evening.
Thursday, okay.
So she feels that she can reach more parents and families
Mhm.
with the virtual option.
Yeah,
And it's also a little less expensive.
yeah, that's
Should
great.
send-
And-
If we
and-
haven't sent that out yet, Blackboard, we should.
Yeah.
And what, that's publicized to, like, how will families find out about that? That you'll send out a.
That's what I was just saying.
communication?
We're
Okay.
going to send out a communication, yeah. We've just finalized the dates. We've talked about it through our smaller groups, through our K-12 action team that met
Yeah.
last week, which is sort of the umbrella group of all the smaller groups, but we want to get out the wider message.
Yeah.
I'll
Just
probably
based
do an
upon the response.
RSVP with the link,
Yeah.
you know, and then post it somewhere else.
And I know that Detective Lucci offers some things.
Yep.
And like based on the response of, like, I think there's a lot of interest in this area.
There
It'll
is.
be-
So, and that's sort of where we're trying to work cooperatively with CIT. And so we're almost, that's the whole message. We're trying to cross-promote and cross-brand. So we have it's canceled for tomorrow, but we had our CIT advisory board. So I'm promoting on the community bulletin board when I send out all the direct links to all of the CIT video, meetings. They're cross-promoting what we're doing. We're using each other's spaces, some at the library, some here, because we're all working together and we're going after a lot of the same folks. There's obviously some wider reach on the community events, but, so that idea of family university is sort of our big brand.
Mhm.
But if an event is family university and CIT and whoever else, that's great. CPAC too, like whoever, if the idea is let's get, people in the room to have important conversations, so.
So I would say overall for the school committee, I would just remind everybody on the committee that it is they are our goals. And so it is not Dr. Daly or Mr. Connolly's responsibility to chase us down to have meetings. We should be reaching out to
We should
them
be
and
chasing them.
saying, hey, do you have time to talk about this and that? And don't be shy to do that, so.
Sounds good.
Dr. Daly, do you want to go over your goals and update on your
Sure.
goals?
And I'm hoping, I'm gonna just make it a little bigger.
I mean, weren't yours all pretty much met the last time you went over with us?
Yeah, I just, this is sort of the mid-year check-in. The first goal here about that we are exploring as a leadership team, and looking at our school improvement plans, making those goals measurable. I think you've seen through our high school, I think there's someone commented that they're seeing that alignment shine through, because you're pretty familiar with what's in NRPS 2025 and then what's in the school goals. I'm really seeing that. I don't know whether some of it's people tell me what I want to hear, but when I go to smaller meetings or smaller group meetings, and Mr. Clean will pass this on, he'll meet with the teacher on individual goals or department goals. I was talking to Dr. Downs, and he was talking about how he was meeting with a department, and they were realizing how this relates to the school improvement goal that's also related to MTSS. So that just that through line in all the work we're doing is how goals get achieved. And so I can provide more examples, but I feel like you've seen a lot of this through some of the school presentations. Any questions? on
Nope.
this one? The, similarly, the what to look for guides, I think the principals will speak to this. I could say what we've just done, meeting with Ms. Pat and Ms. Barrows, Mr. Clean and I asked them, where would you like to see our administrators? So our administrators all have a shared goal with action steps. And I said to them, do these action steps look appropriate? Where would you like to see? And they, the middle school started this a little bit early. Middle school's a little bit ahead. And so what they basically said is, we want all 5 schools to be where the middle school is right now by the end of the year. So in order to get there, we said, we're going to do at least 3 of these walkthroughs by March 28th, which is a day when our entire leadership team comes back together in this room. And then we'd have at least 1 other walkthrough before the end of the year, and then some end-of-year activities to check in. So we feel like we're in a really good place. And what the other piece is to get folks like myself, even Mr. Connolly, Mr. Clean, Dr. Downs, Ms. Conant, to visit the schools and participate in one of these walkthroughs. So these walkthroughs are, we go into a classroom and observe what's happening, following a rubric, and then we have a discussion afterwards about what we saw, what kind of advice we could offer, and then also what we didn't see, right? Dr. Downs is also independently in alignment with the district plan, working on a digital equity walkthrough. So when he's going in, he's looking at things in the classroom about, what tech is available, Wi-Fi, hotspots, technology, is it working? And then those questions that are, a little bit broader about, does everyone have access at home? And if not, do they know how to ask for help and how to get it, which is really important. So that's happening as well.
Dr. Daly, are you doing
Yes.
are these walkthroughs without the support of, like, Ms. Barrows? I mean, you're doing them yourselves?
We are not. At this time, we are doing them with them.
You're still doing
And
them,
that's,
yeah, okay.
that is their hope. So right now, it's just learning. We've been very clear with the teachers that this time they're not evaluative in any way. But down the road, as this is in the rubric, they will want, there's a lot of steps. They'll want some feedback. They'll want professional development, how to do and then we'll give them continuous feedback. But right now, this is so that the administrators know what to look for.
Yep.
And they actually have these what to look for guides that we have adapted for our district. So it's been pretty powerful. It took a little while to get there, but I know that the two, Ms. Barrows and Ms. Pat, are very excited about the most recent round of conversations, because now the principals are seeing things too, and they're not looking to see what the first instinct is. Well, you tell me, outside expert, what are you seeing? Now they've learned it and they're able to say, oh, I noticed this, I noticed that. So it's coming along very well. So we're excited about that. And there's been several things. The high school, I know, implemented an exercise using stickers and helping the teachers think through the rubric, because it's, even though the teachers aren't doing the walkthroughs at this time, we want them to know what we're looking for and what we're talking about. And so we had a very interactive exercise that now has been, it's being replicated in other districts. Is there anything to add to that, Sean?
No.
The next one is the best practices about strategic planning. So this is about modeling that at the classrooms, which also these two goals are very closely related. I know I provided an NRPS 2025 update last time. And so that's really what, the one before is a little bit about my professional learning, about this process, and then this is this. I feel like we talked about this quite a lot last time, so
Yeah.
any other questions on that one? And then the last one is just the MTSS piece. This is pretty exciting. You know, we're saying by the end of this school year, at all 5 schools. So elementary has been doing this in some way or another for many years. They've revisioned it a little bit. They've reached higher grades. They've talked about the difference between an MTSS approach and an RTI approach. Middle school's been doing it under the umbrella of MTSS, and it's been a process of rebranding it a little bit and making sure they understand what we're talking about with the district-wide MTSS approach and getting on board. High school is the most difficult in terms of across the globe about what interventions look like at high school. It's very different to say, are you behind grade level in second grade math versus, 10th graders are taking all these different courses. Some are in algebra, some are in geometry, some are, right? So trying to figure out what that looks like. So a big piece of what they're doing, they're in a 2-year study of Power Block and how we can use that. That's sort of a built-in, there's possibilities there for interventions and extra help and targeting students that might need support. So they're in sort of year 1 of 2 looking at that. So that's some of that work. And I know that Mr. LaPret spoke to that a little bit. We're going to continue to check in on that. So that's really where we are with all of this MTSS work. And, Ms. Conant certainly has goals directly around this work that she's doing. The other piece of MTSS is, that's the academic side. There's also the social emotional side. And so the screeners that Mr. Vino spoke about at the high school and district-wide as well, we have a stipended position of lead clinician, and she's sort of taken the lead with some of that work. We are starting to pilot our screeners for mental health concerns to address students far upstream to try to help identify supports and resources early on. So that's something that's rolling out. So that's sort of the intervention side of the social emotional part as well as the academic. So any questions on that?
Nope.
That's great.
That's good, thank you.
Great. So we'll continue to see this, and the principals are coming to their agendas are aligned to the big rock sort of NRPS. You'll see that through their presentations as well.
Only comment I'll make, just because you brought up Mrs. Conant, was she had presented to us before about the district-wide review that was happening. And
Yes.
I was on the email. She had just said that we were going to be in compliance with everything, and that
Yeah.
official report did come down, and we were in compliance with everything, so.
We did not get the commendable.
I noticed that, I wasn't going to put out the negative.
No, we
but-
did not get that at this time, but we did everything to get, that's very difficult to come by.
Right.
But we got, we are complete with that. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you for splitting hairs.
but we did, yeah. I didn't want to point out the
You didn't
negative.
point it out.
Dr. Taylor did. Okay, moving on, routine matters, minutes. We have a January 22nd open session and a January 29th executive session.
I move to approve the open session minutes for the school committee meeting on January 22nd, 2024, as written.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Any abstentions? Somebody wasn't there, but,
I
okay.
think there was one. Yeah.
With that,
Yeah, I think Jeff wasn't there.
do you want to vote to,
one?
January 2nd, do you want to vote to
Oh.
approve it still, or do you want to abstain? I don't care.
I'll abstain.
Okay, passes 4-0, 1 abstention. And then we had an executive session on January 29th.
I move to approve the executive session minutes of the school committee meeting dated January 29th, 2024, as written.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Abstain.
And 1 abstention, okay. So 4-0 with 1 abstention again. Budget update, Mr. Connolly.
Yes, thank you. So in the packet was the January budget report that does summarize financial activity through the end of January. So again, the report is broken down through expenses and payroll. There's not a lot of new information from last month's report. We are seeing, though, additional special education costs arise. Some of that is out-of-district student costs. We are in good position to address those additional costs this year because of the steps we took at the end of last year with it exceeding our prepayment target with fiscal year 2023 year-end funds. So all costs are still projected to remain within budgeted amounts. We are seeing a need to provide additional academic supports and tutoring and support to students, and we're just monitoring that at this time, but again, everything is remaining within budget. There's still some schools and departments that are spending down their instructional expense accounts and in the areas of supplies and professional development, but I think those are all kind of planned and will continue to be encumbered and spent as we move through the second half of the fiscal year. The payroll accounts are all within budgeted amounts. We've seen some changes and some leave of absences this year, maybe a little bit higher than what is typical, but we're just kind of monitoring those. I still anticipate that everything will remain within budget. We're just kind of monitoring that impact when there is a professional staff member or a teacher that's out on a leave and we incur additional substitute costs for that. And still maybe paying that teacher for a portion of that leave, what that impact is. So that happens every year and we're just monitoring that, but at the moment there's nothing that I don't anticipate will be within budget. The food service program is performing well. We're still seeing that participation amount a little over 70% at all of the schools. The middle school in particular this year is performing really, really well and strong when compared to previous years.
Second lunches. A lot of people are buying.
Yeah, second
too.
lunches.
A lot of people are buying too.
is large. That's certainly the case.
Become a thing.
But that's going well. Again, feedback I'm getting from new menu items being offered by the new director and guided by the regional new dietitian has been, everything I've heard has been positive. And some of the events they're doing at the schools in terms of school choice and tasting events and stuff has
Positive
gone
feedback from our
well.
households.
Yeah, I've heard.
Whatever.
That's great. That's great.
I have picky children.
So that's all good news. I will say when we're talking about the food service program, and hopefully any delays don't go into Wednesday. We'll keep our fingers crossed because Wednesday is the day that those vendors that are participating in the RFP process for food service contracts is the site walkthroughs.
You should be okay.
So, yeah, we should be okay.
Do you know how many people are coming?
So I know there's been at least 3 vendors that have pulled the RFP.
Okay.
Whether they come, they've told me they're gonna come, so I know.
Including the one that we have.
Including,
currently,
correct.
and then-
So I think we'll have at least 3. There could be some that have pulled it, and I don't know it because it is posted on our website.
Okay.
So we'll find out on that day. People have told me it's going to be popular because we were the first district to release the RFP under the new guidelines.
Nice.
Okay.
So it's out there first, so people are interested. So we'll see what happens.
On the food service, so I know that we had talked somewhere about we have to provide breakfast as well, correct? I mean, has that been happening yet, or are we?
So it is happening, it's still not happening universally, so we need to develop a plan to do that. They're giving us time, they're not, because they know it can be.
Is that something that's planned for
challenges.
this year then?
I would like to get that plan. I'm hoping by April, we can have a plan in place to make that happen.
Technically, the policy says where.
But they know it could involve some investment. We have to sort of figure out logistics of that, in terms of the drop-off locations and how that's feasible, but, it's certainly, breakfast has been happening for a while, it just hasn't been universally out there for every student that's dropped off at different times and so forth.
And that would still be under the free, so I remember in the
Correct.
policy, so
Yeah,
every student is entitled to one free breakfast as well?
correct.
Okay.
We're available.
Yes, we're available. Sorry, I don't know if you were done with your report. Dr. Daly?
Just through the
I'm
chair.
done, I'm actually done.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Michael and Kate and others for their work on this. This was a new process through the Department of Ed. I think a lot of it was to regulate and guide a process that we actually do pretty well, but I think a lot of places it was very different. But it was quite a task, took a lot more time than typical. And as Michael said, there were a lot of working out the issues on their side, and we were one of the The first, is that what you said? or-
The first, yeah.
So,
The
so great
RFP.
work. I don't want that to go
Yep.
unnoted.
Thank you very much. And I just have a couple questions on the special education. So
yes,
with the excess one, so 3 different questions. So the first one is, will we exceed the number to get to apply for extraordinary expenses this year with the move-ins or not?
So it's so we investigated that, and we were not at that amount.
Okay.
So because we had to actually indicate whether we were going to apply by February 1st. So we
And that-
did do it, because we
Yeah.
did do an analysis on that, and we were just not. we
And
were
for everybody, for people that don't know, so if the budget amount that year goes over by what percentage?
It's 25%.
25%, then you can get.
Prior year.
Okay, and then, second thing is, when a student moves in, because I know we're always a year behind on reimbursements for
Correct.
when we go above and beyond. They move in that year, does that count as year one, or does it have to be a full calendar year before?
When a student, it's really when you start incurring that cost.
So is it that school year and then the next year you'd be able to get it, or do you have to go for a full calendar year and then?
It's
that? You know what I'm
really,
saying? Like,
you can certainly apply
what's the
for
reimbursement? It's what-
reimbursement. They set a threshold, they set a
yeah, the 3
benchmark.
times or whatever, the 4
It's
times.
3 times the state per pupil. We're up to like 51,000 is like.
What's
sort
that
of the
called?
benchmark.
What's that called? what's the reimbursement called?
Circuit breaker.
Circuit breaker.
Circuit breaker, yes.
But it's like, so I know the first year you can't get the circuit breaker, it's always a year behind.
True up.
But what I'm
Well-
wondering is like, if somebody moves in the 23-24 year, even if they're not there for the full year, would we be able to get the circuit breaker for 24-25? Or do we have to
I
wait a
think the
full
question,
year?
the answer to that is you can apply for it and include them on your claim if you've exceeded that benchmark amount. So if they come in mid-year, but they're still greater than the $51,000
Okay.
benchmark, we can claim
Okay.
that student.
Okay, thank you. And then,
Following year.
The fall for the, yes, for our claim.
yeah, and again, and I'm not suggesting we do this, but we do have the fund that we've put money into specifically for move-ins if we
Correct.
go above a certain amount.
Yeah.
But I assume we're not at a point of even considering that yet?
Not yet, but, I mean, it might be something
Okay.
we want to
Do
consider.
we have 200,000 in there or 300,000?
We increased it,
We increased the stabilization by an additional 50?
We did
yeah, I
100
want to
100
say,
last
we're either 200 or 250. I have to go back and check. I know there was an
Okay.
article this last June that increased it,
Yeah,
Right,
so I just want to, it might be at
but
250.
we haven't accessed.
yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, it's a call out of why we need to continue to put money into that, though, too.
Yes.
Because these are the sorts of things that can really impact. Okay, and you want to guide us through the student activity? Anybody else
Oh,
have
yeah.
questions on the budget?
Or-
Okay. And then, do you want to guide us through the student activity
Yes.
report of your report?
So we sort of reconciled this report, just as the last packet was going out, so it's included here, but this does reflect activity through the end of Q2 of this fiscal year, so this is really activity through December 31st, 2023. So as what's included is you're seeing the reconciled certified balances of the 5 student activity accounts at each school. The listing of sub-accounts at the middle school and the high school is also included, as we've done in the past. But again, I think everything is certainly in good standing. We continue to just be in compliance with the policy and with the guidelines around governance of student activity accounts. The information is kind of there. I don't know if there's any particular questions.
Oh, they seem I think they were very similar, like 18.
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of
97 at high
changes.
school. I think it was very similar to last.
Just kind of moving along. Again, so Sabita Pai in my office does an exceptional job managing these accounts and working with administrative assistants and club treasurers. So
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Daly, staffing updates?
Sure, just a few notes here. We have Alicia Valdez, paraprofessional special education at the Hood. Debbie Aldrich, who is she's a teacher who returning, a long-term sub-paraprofessional at the Little School. Tammy Stapleton, who is coming in as a long-term substitute teacher at the Middle School. Anthony Brown is a long-term sub-teacher for social studies at the high school. And Edward Calabrito is a custodian second shift for buildings and grounds. Dana Brown is a food service associate, as well as Melenius Nunez de Perez is a permanent substitute food service worker.
Welcome, everyone. Bids and donations. You want to read us through that?
Have some, yep.
You gonna get off Facebook? I'm just kidding.
No, I spent the whole budget on my phone. It's not that bad. We have three here. I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $1,600 from the Batchelder Parent Organization to help fund the grade 2 field trip to the Stoneham Theater.
Nice.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor? Aye, opposed, unanimous?
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $500 from the Hood Parent Association to help fund the grade 5 field trip to Kimball Farm.
Second.
Yes.
Throwing things on.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor? Aye, opposed, unanimous?
And I
So
move
cruel.
that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation in the amount of $270 from the Little School Parents Association to help defray the cost for the grade 4 field trip to the Lexington Symphony.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Great.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
There's,
opposed, unanimous?
Lexington Symphony.
Did all of you do one? Yeah?
No,
No, just, yeah.
I'm trying to rattle you.
Okay, and grants, I think we have one grant as well?
We do have a grant. Do we have a dollar amount on this grant?
So, no, I was just going to explain, they haven't
Okay.
given a dollar amount, they're basically providing the program to us for free. So it's basically access to the state program.
Gotcha.
I just thought, it's not really one to approve, I just wanted to remind everyone that we are a part of this program now in the 4th year. So this is a part of the statewide program for cybersecurity.
Good, okay. There's no overnight trip request this time.
Not yet.
Subcommittee updates, finance planning team met on February 5th. Mr. McGowan, you want to give an update?
So we had another good discussion in person, which I think is important with this group at this point in time, discussing the, the revenue, what things look like, year-to-date, but also more importantly, looking at revenue plan going forward and discussing what we know to be the case, significant shortfalls based on what we know about revenue and budgets for next year, and what we're gonna do about it, including talking about the possibility of asking the town for an override. But in addition to that, there's a lot of other things going on in town. We know that they're still talking about the sewer project. It's gonna be discussed tonight at the select board meeting, so that's out there. We're close to getting an override vote on the fire station, which is gonna be a really important project for the town. So there's a lot going on, and it's still not clear whether we can move forward on an override request this year, and I think hopefully that there'll be some clarity on that the next couple days or weeks.
Yeah, without, I'll just chime in, without calling out specific positions of anybody, what I'll say is I think there was a consensus that there's a lot of big budget items that are coming up for vote. And the sewer seems to be hanging over the head of everything else. And that was something that I think Mr. McGowan and I said very clearly to the other members of the finance planning team, and it seems like there probably will, originally we were told there was probably gonna be a special town meeting in March. It seems like that's not going to happen. It seems like they were kicking it down the road even further, and I think we both strongly suggested that either vote it now or table it for years, because it's just hanging over everything else right now, and that was a very big concern of ours, and so I think some of
What was the
that.
response to that?
Everybody in the room, I think, agreed with that. The question was how to resolve it, whether we push it to a vote right now anyways, to end it or approve it now, or just table it and come back later on, because, again, without getting into their details too much, I think there was a time urgency to this before because a road was being torn up, and if we were gonna put the pipes in that road, we had to do it when the road was being torn up. It seems like the route is probably gonna change, so there's no time urgency to it anymore, and there's a lot more detail to still get, so it doesn't seem like it's really ripe for, maybe not ripe for voting right now, but I think everybody in the room was in consensus that it's a cloud hanging over everything, and So I think there's gonna be a discussion tonight. I am gonna, for some reason, go over to the select board meeting and
I know I might even.
chime in a little
Would be
bit.
for some
But I think that's gonna be discussed tonight as to like, we have to do something or move on, and so we can focus on the other things. There's also discussion on like, for example, the firehouse, like how to fund it. Is it budget? Do we use some of the, Pulte money or things like that? So there was discussions on funding sources for various things. But again, that's exactly what this group is for. It's to try to look at all of the things addressing it, and I think it was a good discussion. I think there was agreement on certain things. There were some disagreements on exactly how to handle some of those things, but I think Rich and I both gave our thoughts on them, and yeah. So I thought it was a good discussion overall, and the other thing that I had suggested to Mr. Gilberto was that we tend to always start with like the current revenue, which never changes, and we spend an hour on that, which doesn't need an hour just because everybody starts telling stories, and so I suggested we just sort of get to
I like
the things we actually have to start with at like next year's revenue, and so this time we did that, so it was
Of course, Mr. Gilberto wasn't there this time. so-
correct. Maybe that's why it went so much better. No, I was kidding.
Just kidding.
So you
yes.
missed the stories.
CIPC.
He actually doesn't tell the stories.
No,
Other
it's
members.
finance committee.
Fair enough.
Mr. Friedman, you want, or Mr.
Yep.
Connell, you want to talk about CIPC?
I'm fine talking about it. So, in prior meetings before this last one, we went through all of the proposals, one by one, group by group. And then after that, we get a summary and do rankings of all of the proposals. And now with this last meeting, we've started to review the rankings that everybody's placed on there. And so we're not done with that yet. It's probably gonna take, I would guess, 2 more meetings, maybe more, to go through all of it to finalize all the questions people have, clarifications.
You have ranked already, or
We've ranked, but we haven't, now we're reviewing each person's rankings to look at outliers. Why did you rank that way? Are you sure? It's a pressure campaign, yeah. It's just, it's more of just a review and clarification of what we've already been through. If last year's an indication, it will take a few meetings to go through it.
Is there a specific amount that they've allocated for this, or could the dollar amount vary a little bit depending on the projects? And like, is like there a cut line of like, this is how much we're gonna use, or can that vary a little bit based on the voting?
There is a line, I don't think we've actually
Yeah,
placed
they
it
haven't.
on there.
Yeah.
But
We haven't
there is-
drawn that line,
yeah.
as Jeff said, but that's kind of
There
the
is.
step.
But I guess my question is,
It varies. It's not
Yeah,
like
$1.5
we're gonna do
million do we
automatically
have?
$2 million a
but it's
year.
not, it's not announced, it's not at what point is it decided, I guess?
They haven't figured it out yet.
They haven't figured it out yet.
From the as
Yeah,
part
it's
of
from the budget.
Yeah.
It's from free cash.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, yes, correct.
So, essentially, we try to come to a consensus on the ranking,
And then draw the line.
and then there's meetings, I think they look at the debt schedule, what's coming off, what's coming on, what's with raise and appropriate, stable, and then the line gets drawn.
Well, that's actually true, because there's some things there's some things that will be bonded, and there's others that are
Correct.
just paid from free
Correct.
cash too.
Correct. Yeah,
But we will have higher free cash probably with the interest number, that's not all in the revenue plan.
but the
Yeah.
free cash that we're assigning to these, is it the free cash that existed as of the end of the year last year, or is it the free cash, because we don't budget a free cash number, that's what I've been
No, I think
confused
I think it's last year, free
Yeah,
cash
so
as of
we
last
had
year.
X
Yeah.
amount of free cash last year, and we can apply some
To capital project.
smaller amount of that total to
Correct.
projects this year.
correct, yep.
Right.
And they just try to look at, based on the life expectancy of the project, the nature of the project, what fits into that free cash amount and what doesn't.
They want to vote it in June, though, that's,
Well, and then all that free cash,
yeah. They want to vote in June.
But we-
But it also takes a while to get it certified, that's the other.
But that's true with all of this stuff. We're
Yeah.
talking about an override for things that,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's the same problem.
I will say that the school department, many projects were kind of ranked high.
Yep.
So we're hopeful that we'll get,
Ain't seen nothing yet, but.
not all, but more than a couple. So,
Good. Okay, thank you. Upcoming meeting, finance planning team is meeting February 16th and March 8th at 8:15 a.m. Potentially, I think we're doing both of those. Since one of them's in like 4 days, I should probably know that. Policy subcommittee is February 20th and March 12th, both at 1 p.m. Evaluation subcommittee is February 20th and March 12th, both at 1:30 p.m. Policy, you might need more than a half hour on that. Sorry, I'm just saying.
I'm thinking we need to just break it into small digestible, like one policy per meeting.
Just saying. Athletic subcommittee scheduled to meet March 5th at noon. Fine arts subcommittee, March 5th at 3:15. CIPC, February 6th. It's highlighted, but
No, I need the
15.
date. Did
I
you?
don't
put it
know,
down?
yeah, I'm not,
We weren't
Michael,
sure
do
what
you
the date
remember
was.
when the next one is?
so I had to sign off, and they were taking a while to select the
Yeah,
date of that
I
meeting.
don't remember where
I
we
know,
ended
and I think we may have both had, I was in a conference, I was trying to get into the
We'll reach
conference.
out
I
to
think-
someone and update.
okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we're meeting actually next week, if I remember right.
Did they decide to do it during the February
I
break?
think so, but I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Dr. Daly, administrative report.
Thank you.
And I have a couple things if they're not on your admin report, I forget.
As I mentioned, we're doing our bias and hate crimes presentations. We had one on February 7th. We had one, we'll have several more tomorrow, on Wednesday of this week. The feedback that we received was positive at our DEIB and K-12 Action Committee. There's also, to be transparent, there's been some people that reached out with some concerns. And those concerns are more general concerns that we're even talking about some of these things in school. I think the spirit of why we're having a hate crimes initiative in the state, why there's this is again the group that worked with all athletic directors, superintendents, principals across the state, and it's the same group that works with people from around the world. There's a lot of misunderstandings and misinformation out there. As was said, we were in a meeting with them this morning. Sports are a great way to bring people together. There's a lot of diversity on the field. Even in the Super Bowl last night, there was diversity discussions on the field written there, and this is a place where it's a good way to broach the topics. And people are going to be uncomfortable about a lot of different things, but we're sort of committed to this mission here in the district, and to have conversation is a good way to continue that work. So I don't know if there's any questions about this work at all?
Nope.
But we would also have our community presentation coming under that grant as well, as well as some individual work.
Oh, the
Yes.
other question I had is curiosity, those presentations that are those things that if parents were interested to see what was being shown to kids, or is that something that the presentations could be shared? So they could continue discussions at home, or?
We would certainly talk to them about it. There's not been it's been a very, I don't know what the word would be, grassroots. It's very much a speaker speaking. There's not
Okay.
like a PowerPoint
Okay.
or materials like that.
Yeah.
But talking about experiences, the speaker's athlete coming in and talking about her experiences in the room. But we're happy to share with them, to put them in touch with any of the people, if people have reached out. So that's what we've done. We take all concerns or questions and all praise very seriously. We want to hear it, and we want to talk about it. So I would also invite people that are concerned to come to our DEIB groups and talk with us about our mission as a district.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to share out about the pandemic recovery. This was shared with me. Miss Marcy Bailey actually reached out. This is an interactive tool, and I had not seen it. It was great to pop North Reading into there, and just to see where North Reading.
I sent you that too.
You did send it to me? You did.
Marcy
I sent
beat
you,
me to
I
it.
sent you the graph, actually. Remember
Yeah.
the
But you don't
She was
get
first.
no credit at all.
I plugged in some, I think I
You
plugged in.
sent it to me after. it
I
was-
thought I plugged in Boxford too to.
But it was great to see, for me to see a little bit of how we compare elsewhere, and then how we compare to the, around the country, was really pretty interesting to look at. So it's an interactive tool, but it was good. It just helps to tell the story of what our teachers are doing in the classrooms.
Really sad to see some districts, like the cities and things, how much they're struggling. I just saw Lynn there and just like sad.
And I just wanted to share, this was sort of the hot topic last week. Haven't heard as much, but I received several emails following this. It was all over the news with this flip block that Revere Public Schools had put out there. And so, we certainly investigate all different things. We did hear from some concerns from the fire department about this kind of a device. But overall, my assessment of what I looked at, and we are going to review it with the school safety team just so we're fully informed. But the real value is when you're not able to lock the doors, and the doors in our schools, we invested in locks. So we have the locks at all the elementary schools. All the doors to the middle high school were built that way. They all lock, and we have a way to keep them locked at all times. So we don't really have doors that don't lock that need an additional piece to it. So we're going to continue to discuss, tools like this and what they would work. But we did initially hear from the fire department that they had some concerns. But I did hear from a few staff members, families, and it was more just, have you seen this? What are your thoughts? So just wanted to share that out with everyone. We also did our Alice scenarios, which I'd share with you on January 24th. We've collected feedback. We debriefed. We had a subgroup, a school safety subgroup of the K-12 action team on January 31st. There was, I think, 3 staff members and 3 parents who joined, had some questions. Did raise some thoughts for me about how I communicate out, especially to new families. And that's what I forget. I know I just did this 6 months ago, so I don't want to do it again. But those incoming pre-K kindergarten families may not have heard it. So if there's a way I can try to reach out annually with some of this information, I appreciated that feedback. And that is an update there. Any questions on school safety?
My only 2 things I wanted to call out, didn't do earlier. Number 1, I just wanted to recognize Lily, who,
Yes,
North Reading
yeah.
student from the unified team who sang the national anthem at the Celtics game.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that. Yeah,
I
it was
went-
fantastic.
Yeah, I went to that. Mr. LaPret was there. Ms. Alonso was there. There were some teachers there. Mr. Hudson, I know, was there. So that was great. We went.
She runs over to him right at the end. It's pretty cool.
It was great. It was great. And
Did they win the game?
they did win the game. It was a good game, too.
Watched.
And selfishly, I'll call out James and Giant Peach was fantastic as well. I don't think we've had a meeting since then. I mean, Arden's daughter is like a rocket up there,
Arden's
I'm just
daughter.
gonna say. Or no, Noel's daughter is like a rocket up there, so I'm just gonna say.
Fantastic performance.
It was great. It was
Yes,
great all
especially-
around. So the kids
especially
went
the
up.
earthworm.
There were a lot of great performances, so
It was truly outstanding.
it was good.
Oh, it was very
And we won't
good.
ask you to compare, so.
Oh.
Any correspondence?
None at this time.
And future business, we have a meeting on February 26th at 6:30 here, March 11th at 6:30 here, March 25th at 6:30 also here.
So.
Oh, wait, is that the Hood School or not?
So I
Yeah.
wanted to just address, so I've had a request to move the March date that was at the Hood. Part of what the Hood wants to present on is some of what's happening with their playground outside, and they
Okay.
wanted to buy a little time. This would mean that the elementary schools are 3 in a row at the end of the year. This would be our last meeting of the year.
Okay.
Would move to, so when we typically recognize the retirees and things, we would move that to the Hood School. I don't think that's an issue. I just wanted to bring it up. And I also wrote TBD. We have June 10th as that meeting, but I think we're still trying to pin down when town meeting is. So we have to work around.
Okay.
that. But that's, if everyone's okay with the Hood School meeting moving to later in the school year.
I see no issue with it.
So because
Just wanna
we
sit
want
there.
to play on the playground.
Yeah.
When it's open, so.
June sounds nice.
Just wanna play.
Okay, so now, we are not going to adjourn, we are going to go into an executive session. So I need a motion to go into the executive session, all right, enter the executive, and not to return. Okay, so I would read the motion.
I move to enter into executive session and to not return to open session in order to discuss collective bargaining strategy with the North Reading Education Association, as having the discussion in open session would be a detrimental effect on the public body's negotiating position and bargaining position.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, but we have to do a roll call vote. Rich?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Noel?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. 5-0, and again, just to say again, we are not coming back to an open session, so
So, go home.
thank you, everyone. Are we gonna stay here? Are we gonna go elsewhere?